So this is our success tips for beginning educators. I'm Ansley. So for my field experience background, I was throughout both of my field experiences that I completed throughout this course, I was in a kindergarten classroom. In this classroom, there were students of varying needs as well as strengths. We had students all over the charts, with some needing a lot of extra help, having to be pulled throughout the day for different activities, and getting extra resources, while some are high achievers and they were already testing on several first grade levels. And so it was really such a balance in this classroom, figuring out what student needed how many different assignments we needed to prepare, if they finished early, if a student's still behind on their work, and how to adequately complete all of their work in the time frame given. And so it was really such a struggle with this classroom in particular, because we had so many different needs that we had to address constantly. Every single one of us had to constantly be with a student, because now there's 3 of us in the classroom helping out, sometimes 4. So just overall, it was such a diverse classroom in so many different ways, because we had all the different needs and constantly allowing to make sure that we had work lined up. That way there was never any downtime for behavior issues or anything else. My first tip is to constantly have mindsets in the classroom. One of the biggest phrases I constantly hear in my personal kindergarten classroom is that I can't do it, something's too difficult. And so it's just rephrasing their mind to understand that they can do it, they have the knowledge basis, and maybe they're just stuck on one problem and that they need to accomplish something for their head, and then we come back to it, see if anything helps them. Maybe they ask a peer, ask the teacher for help. That way they understand what's being asked of them, and they can change that fixed mindset into a growth mindset. One of the Then, if they come to you for asking for help, you always ask more specific questions of what in particular they need help with. That way they're just not saying they're stuck overall on an assignment, and that they can immediately get back to work. They can understand why the letter makes that sound, or why the word blends to the word it becomes, why the letters blend to make that word, and stuff like that, instead of just constantly saying, it's too hard, I cannot complete it. The next tip I have is constantly the behaviorism in the classroom, and I think this goes hand in hand with classroom management. So I do have some behavior issues in the classroom I was in, and a lot of it does come down to their age, and then this is their first time in school. So since they are 5 to 6 years old, there is a student who is older. He's about to be 7. Some of the behaviors in the classroom are very different. So we have a lot of talkative students, and we do have students that constantly have outbursts, at least normally once a day. So it is kind of difficult to overall understand their different needs and how to go about that, because you constantly have to stay on top of them. And I do think some of it does come down to the classroom rules not being enforced in the classroom. One of them is being raise your hand to speak, and that could help with cutting down on the talkativeness, because when we come to the rug as a whole group, we constantly have to take people off the rug, move people around the room. That way the teacher can actually teach the lesson and the students will understand without any distractions, because everyone is constantly talking and no one wants to listen. They want to play around with their friends. They want to constantly move around. We do have a lot of busybodies in our room, and just understanding what student needs what needs, if they need to be off the rug, that way they do have freedom to move without disrupting the class. Or if they feel like they're going to talk, move them off the rug maybe. That way they won't talk, they don't feel tempted to. And so it's just really hard to understand what students needs, how they need it. Maybe it's not every single day that they need it. Maybe they just need it once a week. Or if they're having a struggling day one morning, maybe they didn't get enough sleep the night before, just understanding their needs for that day in particular, and overall understanding why their needs are that and how we can aid them. Because since we do have the outburst, it does cause a whole class disruption, and so that can then lead it can carry on for days at that point. And so just understand I don't necessarily think the child needs to go to ISS or something. Yes, sometimes that can help, or maybe the parent conferences can help, but since it is about once a week, if not more, and especially I've learned on Fun Fridays, there's outbursts maybe if they didn't finish their work and they were expected to finish this one worksheet for their end of year scrapbook, it can be difficult because all their peers are playing while they're doing their work, and so that could lead to an outburst and them not wanting to do anything. And some other behaviorism we have is we have a few students who like to spit on other people, and so that can lead to germ spreading, sickness spreading, which is just ultimately not okay, and it causes like the whole class to be grossed out and disgusted. And so it's just constantly trying to remember how to like wrap up the lessons, like stay on track. Like we don't do that. Like these are the rules for a reason. We don't spit on people, stuff like that. So it's just constantly trying to like reinforce the rules, not only our classroom, but the school as a whole, and understand that some of these students have never been in a classroom setting. So it is difficult for them to understand why the rules are that and maintain them because maybe their home life isn't as great, and so they don't see these rules enforced at home, and they have free reign to do whatever they want. Another tip I have is for motivation in the classroom. With the behavior outbursts, some of them just have outbursts since they don't want to do their work no matter what day of the week it is, no matter what work it is, no matter how easy or difficult it is. So several things we have in place are like getting a smiley face on their work if it's completed and done correctly, allowing them to get like a fun eraser, fun shaped erasers. Like my class is safari animals, so we have different shaped safari erasers that they get to choose. They get to take home, they get to use in class, whatever they want to do. Occasionally it's candy, but we try and stay away from that due to the sugar in it and it just not being the overall best option for our class. And another thing we do is smile or like Scentsy spots on their hands, which is just getting Scentsy marker and put on their hands. They love to smell it. They love to play around with it. They constantly ask for it, and occasionally stamps. But we try and, for the most part, just do the erasers and just a smiley face and check marks on their work, maybe a star on their work, because that's what they really crave. It's just like the immediate validation from it, and so that helps with their motivation and keep them on track. They want because they crave the immediate validation that comes from all those rewards. Um, so it really just also differs based off each child as a whole, because some want the immediate validation while others just still do not care. They lack their motivation. And so just keeping everyone on track and being like, hey, like this is what we're gonna do next. So, like we need everyone in class to finish. So it's just kind of like the buddy system of like get your peers on board of like to finish their work so they understand like so we can move on as a class and they understand the material and understand why it is important to finish your assignment as a whole. And so some of the like the immediate rewards are just what helps. And then that also goes hand in hand with positive reinforcement is like if you do your work, you get a reward. And so that helps them stay motivated and stay on track to complete it. Because especially in the morning when they're coming in doing their morning work, it's hard to lose track of that. So we try and in the morning especially get on track with like the erasers and the smelly dots, make sure the day starts off correctly. My last point would be diversity in the classroom. We had students at every single maturity level as well as home lives, and so it's very easy to lose track and lose sight. But I think it's also such a good thing to see how people from different backgrounds learn different ways and how they acquire the information differently, how they assess different situations, and how it goes hand in hand with everything I've already talked about.
Um, this is my field experience background information. I'm also in a kindergarten classroom, which is a Title I school, and it's important because they get less support in certain areas. There's a more diverse student body, and you can really tell that in my class, in my experience. There's a very diverse student body. There's a lot of needs, there's a lot of different children who are coming to class from different backgrounds. It's in like just an area that doesn't really get much support. So I feel like that's really given me some like background and some experience in that sense. And I've learned a lot from my cooperating teacher, who she has four years of experience in kindergarten classrooms, and she's taught in multiple different states. And she's also always had classrooms where there's been a lot of needs. There's a lot of children who may be on IEPs or have behavioral issues that aren't diagnosed, something that's more undiagnosed, or really gifted students. There's like a lot of gifted students in my classroom. So all this really helped me throughout the experience because I was able to take what I was learning about in this course and apply it in my field experience. My first tip is about managing classroom behaviors and just like student motivation. So what I've witnessed in my field experience is My CT uses a lot of incentives like candies or stickers to motivate her students intrinsically and get them to want to do assignments. And in turn, this also is like used for her classroom management. If students are motivated to do the right thing and impress her, then they're also motivated to behave correctly. And I think she does a really great job of using positive reinforcement, which we talked about in this course in operant conditioning. She uses a mix of both positive and negative reinforcement, but this reinforcement has trained the students' behavior to do the right thing because they know if they do the right thing, then it's a positive experience. And she's always just kept very positive. So even down to like the facial expressions or the feelings that my CT is like giving off, it makes them want to behave better. So my tip for like first year teachers or new teachers is to always be intentional with your expectations and your reinforcements and stick to it. Like if you give candy for this or you give a sticker for this, then you always do it. It should be something that the kids are expecting so that way they can build that intrinsic motivation to do it. So just always stay predictable with your expectations and always be very intentional with your behavior and attitude in the classroom because the kids do feed off of that and they do feel your energy. So if you're stressed out, then they're going to be stressed out, or if you're chaotic, they're going to be chaotic. Oh, there. My second tip is about student assessment and data collection. In my second field experience report, I discussed the importance of assessment and the different kinds of assessments, which is like assessment for learning and assessment of learning. And when I did my observations for this field experience report, I learned a lot about assessment and how it's important for even it could tie into student motivation if you give incentives for good assessments or like not in front of the class, but like a one-on-one conversation and how important assessing students are. And it doesn't have to be something that's stressful. It doesn't have to be something that gives them anxiety. And it was just like really great to get experience about like seeing formative assessments, seeing summative assessments, and how she uses her data collection to drive her instruction. So, for like their state testing that they did for like the first quarter, she used that data to then create small groups and really help with student learning. So this tip would really be to have intentional assessments, use your data. Don't be scared of looking at data and categorizing students to drive instruction because at the end of the day, you're going to have certain groups that are ahead, you're going to have groups that are struggling. So you need to use that information that you're gaining to help them. It doesn't have to be stressful, it doesn't have to be anxiety inducing, and it can actually really help you as an educator. My third tip is about student diversity. And in the content of this course and just other courses that I'm taking, I've learned a lot about student diversity and how many different needs can be present in one classroom. And you always have to consider the needs of every single student in your room in order to make sure every single student is getting a similar experience and they're actually learning from what you're teaching. And like this could be like ELs or exceptional students or gifted students or students who have an IEP or 504. Like you have to really differentiate your lessons. So my tip would be just to be intentional when planning your lessons and have backup plans and differentiations and prepare for every type of student that you have in your classroom. My final tip is cognitive development. This was one of the things that I learned in this course that really I considered while in my placement is the cognitive stage theory and how every student based off of their age is in a different cognitive development stage and there's more things that are like important to them. So like kind of like in my field experience at kindergarten, they're exploring things in a different way than a student who would be in fifth grade, just developmentally wise. So like the sensory motor would be birth to 2, pre-operational ages 2 to 7, concrete operational 7 to 11. So a lot of the things I witnessed were pre-operational, and it's really important when you're planning lessons to know what stage of development are my students at. So what are they prepared to grasp in my class, and doing things at an age appropriate level and always considering what stage they're at. And that is our presentation. I know after listening to Ansley, I heard like a lot of things about her experience, and even though they're similar, like our tips are slightly different, and any educator could really use our tips.
Mhm, absolutely. I really
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So beginning teachers can use our tips and have a successful class. Thank you.